Hello people and welcome back to Maybe Ismail. In this session we will be doing quadratic equations. Now I expect you all to know a little bit about quadratic equations, especially the factorization method, which is the split the middle term method, because we'll be focusing on doing a little bit of questions which are formula based and questions which are not very direct. So yeah, let's see. Let us start with the very basic, that what is a quadratic equation. So a quadratic equation is basically an equation which looks like this: ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Over here x is the variable and the highest power of the equation should be 2. Only then it would be a quadratic equation. If the highest power of any equation is 1, you call it a linear equation. If the power is 2, you call it a quadratic equation. And if it is 3, it's a cubic equation, and it just goes on. It's a polynomial after that. Okay. Over here, A, B and C could be any numbers, any real numbers. A, B and C could be any real number, but there is just one restriction on A. And that simple restriction is that A cannot be equal to 0. And the reason for that is, if this thing A, it becomes 0, which means the first term, which is the term that makes the equation a quadratic equation, itself becomes 0. So if this term just goes away, the equation wouldn't remain a quadratic equation. It would turn into a linear equation or any kind of equation, but it won't be a quadratic equation for sure. But C can surely be 0, B can surely be 0. Both of them can be 0 at the same time, but A cannot be 0. Okay, which means the coefficient of x square cannot be 0. That is the general rule over here. Okay. Now, in order to solve a quadratic equation, we have two methods. The first method is by splitting the middle term, or the formula method, and the second method is the formula method, which we'll be discussing a little bit later. Let us move ahead to solving a few questions. So I have a bunch of questions over here. Let's see how much of these we'll be able to finish off in this session. Okay, so let us start with the very first question. And the question says that there is an equation which is 2x square plus px minus 6 is equal to 0, and it says if x is equal to 1 upon 2, then find the value of p. Okay, that's the entirety of the question. So it says that an equation is given to you and the value of x is given to you. You need to find the value of p. It's very basic, very easy. What you do is you just plug in the value of x as 1 upon 2 in the equation and figure out the value of p. You just solve the equation normally the way you would do it. Okay, to the start of this question, we need to understand that the value of x is a mixed fraction. We need to convert it into an improper fraction. So it would be 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So x would be 3 over 2. Now I take this value of x and plug it into the equation, and let's see what happens. So it becomes 2 and then x square. Instead of x, I'll write 3 over 2 and then square it, plus p times x, which is 3 over 2 minus 6 is equal to 0. Okay, the square goes to both of them, so it becomes 2 times 9 over 4 plus 3p over 2 minus 6 is equal to 0. I can simplify this thing, 2 times 1 and 2 times 2. So over here this becomes 9 over 2 plus 3p over 2 minus 6 is equal to 0. Okay, I can multiply the entire equation by 2 so that I get rid of the denominators from everywhere. So every term gets multiplied with 2. So it becomes 9 plus 3p minus 12 is equal to 0. Now 9 minus 12 is negative 3. So 3p is negative, 3p minus 3 is equal to 0. Hence I will get 3p is equal to 3. So 3p is equal to 3, and hence finally p would be equal to 1. That is how easy this is. Okay, so one of the values of x was given to me and I could figure out one unknown. Okay, in the equation. Now let us look at a similar kind of question, which is this thing. The question says mx square plus nx plus 6 is equal to 0. Over here I have two unknowns, that is the coefficient of x square and the coefficient of x both. So m and n are the two unknowns. I need to figure out those values. Now, in order to figure out these two unknowns, I need two values of x. I can't rely on the only value of x like I had in the previous question. And that is how the question is also framed. It says x is equal to 2 over 3 and x is equal to 1. So these are the two values of x. And also I forgot to mention that in a quadratic equation, you'll be always getting two answers for x. So like in a linear equation, whenever you solve the equation, since the power of the equation is 1, like the highest power, therefore you get one answer for the variable. And similarly in a quadratic equation, since the highest power is 2, you will get two answers for any variable. Or if it's a cubic equation, you get three answers for the variable. Okay. And yeah, the question follows, and it says that find the value of m and n. So that m is equal to question mark and n also equal to a question mark. Okay. The general idea remains the same. I just plug in the value of x as 2 over 3, get an equation out of it, and I'll be left with an equation which will have m and n both. So for that, I've been given another value of x, which is x equals to 1. I plug in that value of x and I get another equation and solve those two equations simultaneously and see what I get. Okay, let's start. So this becomes m times 2 over 3 all squared plus n times 2 over 3 plus 6 is equal to 0. The square goes to both of them, so it becomes m times 4 over 9 plus 2n over 3 plus 6 is equal to 0. Now, in order to get rid of the denominators, I'll have to multiply it with the highest thing or the LCM at least. So over here, I'll have to times it by 9. So this becomes 4m plus 6n plus 54 is equal to 0. I can surely divide the entire equation by 2 to just simplify it a little bit. So this becomes 2m plus 3n plus 27 is equal to 0. That is one of the equations in m and n. Now I'll do the same exact thing for the other value of x, which is given to me as 1. So it becomes m times 1 square plus n times 1 plus 6 is equal to 0. So this becomes m plus n plus 6 is equal to 0. Now these are two linear equations. Now I have the choice to solve it either by substitution or elimination or cross multiplication or whatever method I know. I'll just prefer the simple substitution method. So m could be written as negative n negative 6. Take this value of m and plug it in over here into this equation. So that becomes 2 times not m but negative n minus 6 plus 3n plus 27, and that would be equal to 0. Open up these brackets, so it becomes minus 2n minus 12 plus 3n plus 27 is equal to 0. Keep all the n's on one side, everything else goes to the other side. So 3n minus 2n is just an n, and 27 minus 12 is just 15. So plus 15 is equal to 0. Now the 15 goes to the other side, side change, sign change, hence n will be equal to negative 15, and that is the value of one of the variables, which is n. I take this value of n and plug it back into this equation which I have over here. So m would be equal to negative n, which means minus of minus 15, which would be plus 15 minus 6, and hence m would be equal to 9. So that is how I solve when two values of x's are given to me and I have two unknowns to figure out. Okay, let us move ahead to another question. And I have a question over here which says 2x minus 3 all squared is equal to 49, and it says find the value of x. So basically I need to simplify this equation to solve the equation and find the value of x. That's the entire idea of this question. Okay, now I have two ways to do it. The first way is to use the expansion formula on the left hand side, which is a minus b the whole square, and just get a quadratic equation, shift that 49 to the other side, factorize it or use the formula method and just solve the equation. The second way is to actually take a square root on both the sides. But here you have to be very mindful while taking a square root. What I can do is, if I take a square root on both the sides, it becomes 2x minus 3 is equal to square root of 49. But I cannot write it as square root of 49. I'll have to be very deliberate over here and write a plus and a minus square root of 49. Okay, because when I think of some value that could give me 49. Okay, so it could be either if I have a variable, so I could say that the variable could either be 7 that squares up to 49, or it is negative 7 that also squares up to a 49. That's why I put up a plus and a minus. From here I take two parts, so it becomes 2x minus 3 is equal to plus and minus 7. Hence the two parts would be 2x minus 3 is equal to either 7, or it would be 2x minus 3 is equal to negative 7. Now I solve these two equations separately and get two different values of x, which is also expected. So this becomes 2x is equal to 7 plus 3, and 2x is equal to 10, and hence x would be equal to 5, and that is one of my answers. Over here it becomes 2x is equal to negative 7 plus 3, and hence 2x is equal to negative 4, and finally x is equal to negative 2. that is the second value of x. I hope that is very clear to everybody. Okay, so let us move ahead to another kind of question, which is like again a very basic question actually. So the question is x plus 1 times 2x plus 8 is equal to x plus 7 times x plus 3. Okay, and I also understand that my handwriting is a little bit here and there, and the x sometimes looks like an n, but yeah, you can manage that. Okay, let us simplify these brackets on the left hand side and the right hand side both. So x goes with both of them, so it becomes 2x square plus 8x. Then the 1 goes with both of them, so plus 2x plus 8, and that would be equal to again the same thing. X goes with both of them, so x square plus 3x. Then the 7x goes with both of them. So I mean the 7 goes with both of them, so it becomes 7x plus 7 times 3 is 21. If I look very closely over here, I can see that this 8x and 2x adds up to 10x, and this 3x and 7x also adds up to 10x. Get rid of this 10x from both the sides. Okay, you could actually shift everything to one side and eventually it would cancel out, it would become 0, but I can do it right away also. Okay, let's see what I'm left with. So I'm left with 2x square plus 8 is equal to x square plus 21. All the x's on one side, everything that does not have an x goes to the other side. So 2x square minus x square is equal to 21 minus 8. Hence x square would be equal to 21 minus 8. How much is 21 minus 8? I suppose it is 12. Yeah, is it 12? No, I don't think. No, it's 13. How much is 21 minus 8, guys? Sorry. 21 minus 8 is 13. Yeah, it is 13. Nice. Okay, so 21 minus 8 is 13, and the value of x over here, the value of x would be again square root of 13, but I can't leave it like this. I have to put up a plus or a minus sign. Okay, so either the positive part of root 13 gives me, like when I square it, it gives me 13, or the negative part of it. So these are my two different answers which were expected over here. Okay, that's good. Let's move ahead to the next question. Fine. So the next question which I have over here is 4 over x plus 2 minus 1 over x plus 3 is equal to 4 over 2x plus 1. Now, just looking at it, you don't realize that it is a quadratic equation because none of the variable, like the x does not have a square on it, so it does not look like a quadratic equation, but you'll have to solve it and then eventually you'll realize that it actually is a quadratic equation. So let us try solving it. How do I do it? I just cross multiply. I just simplify the two fractions over here. So it becomes 4 times x plus 3 minus 1 times x plus 2, and the two denominators, they get multiplied by each other. So it would be x plus 2 times x plus 3, and that is equal to 4 upon 2x plus 1. Okay, let's simplify this thing. So it becomes 4x plus 12 minus x minus 2. In the denominator, when I open up the brackets, I get x square plus 2x plus 3x, basically plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 4 upon 2x plus 1. In the numerator, if I see, I can say 4x minus x would be 3x, plus 12 minus 2 is a 10, and the denominator remains how it is, which is x square plus 5x plus 6, and that is equal to 4 upon 2x plus 1. Now, just shift the denominators to the sides and you can simplify it. So it becomes 3x plus 10 times 2x plus 1, that is equal to 4 times x square plus 5x plus 6. Okay, let us simplify these brackets. So the 3x goes to both of them, so it becomes 6x square plus 3x. Now the 10 goes to both of them, so it becomes 20x plus 10 is equal to 4 goes to everybody, so 4x square plus 20x plus 24. Before simplifying this thing, I can easily see that the 20x from here and the 20x from here can directly go away. I shift all of the things to the left hand side, so it becomes 6x square minus 4x square plus the 3x plus 10 minus 24 is equal to 0. So 6x square minus 4x square is just 2x square plus the 3x, and 10 minus 24 is negative 14, and that is equal to 0. Okay, so here I finally simplified all of these things to get a very basic quadratic equation. Okay, now we'll solve this quadratic equation. So it is 2x square plus 3x minus 14. 2x square plus 3x minus 14. 2x square plus 3x minus 14 is equal to 0. Okay, let's see how do I solve this quadratic equation. We'll surely be following the factorization method, which is the split the middle term method. So how do I do it? The first number times the last number, that's the product. That's supposed to be the product. So it would be 2 times 14 is negative 28. And the sum or the difference is supposed to be the middle number, which is just 3 over here. Now I need to figure out two numbers that multiply to negative 28 and add or subtract to 3. So I know it is 7 and 4. So I'll write 7 times 4. Now one of them have to be negative. It depends on what the sum of the difference is. If this thing is positive, then 7 has to be positive, 4 becomes negative, so that 7 minus 4 is a positive 3. If the 3 were negative, I would have written it as negative 7 times 4, because the product eventually becomes negative if one of them is negative. Okay, so this is how I am going to split it up. So it is 2x square plus 7x minus 4x minus 14 is equal to 0. From the first two terms, I can take an x common. I'll be left with 2x plus 7. From the next two terms, I can take a negative and a 2 common. I'll again be left with 2x plus 7. These two brackets always have to be same, as you already know. Okay, so 2x plus 7 is a common thing from here, and then x minus 2 is equal to 0. Now if I see, there is a product of two things which ends up becoming a 0. Now if the product of two numbers or two things is 0, which means either one of them was 0, only then the answer became 0. So I could say that both of them are suspects. Either one of them is 0. So 2x plus 7 is equal to 0, or I can say x minus 2 would be equal to 0. Over here, 2x is equal to negative 7, and finally x is negative 7 over 2. And over here, x is just equal to 2. So these are the two answers after solving this long of a question. Okay, I hope that is like very clear to everybody. Let us move ahead to the next question. Okay, so the next question is square root of 2x plus 9 plus x is equal to 13. Now, as soon as we look at a square root, we just think that, okay, we need to solve the square root, and to get rid of the square root, we just square the thing, the square root just goes away. But the fact is, if I square the thing already, like directly, if I square it, I'll still be left with a square root, because it is like a plus b the whole square, and I'll still be left with a square root. So the best way to do it is to shift the x to the other side. So it becomes square root of 2x plus 9 is equal to 13 minus x. Now I'll prefer squaring on both the sides. Okay, so now if I square on both the sides, the square of the left hand side just goes away. So it becomes 2x plus 9, and I'll get 13 minus x the whole square on the right hand side. Over here, I can surely use the expansion formula. So it is a minus b the whole square. So 2x plus 9 is equal to a minus b the whole square is a square minus 2ab plus b square. So a square, 13 square is 169 minus 2ab. So minus 2 times 13 times x is minus 26x plus b square, so plus x square. Shift all the things from the left hand side to the right hand side, because I personally prefer to keep the coefficient of x square as positive. That's why I just shift all of these things to the other side. So it becomes x square as it is minus 26x as it is. The 2x goes to the other side, becomes negative 2x plus 169. The 9 goes to the other side, becomes a negative 9, and that would be equal to 0. Now a few people must be thinking that there should be a 0 on this side. It doesn't really matter. I can put the 0 wherever I feel like. Okay, when I simplify this thing, it gets to become like x square minus 28x plus 160 is equal to 0. Now that's a very basic quadratic equation which you all can like easily solve by splitting the middle term. Okay, I won't be completing this question. I'll just leave it for you, and you all can probably help each other in the comments if somebody is not able to do it. Okay, fine. Let us move ahead to the next question which I have over here, which is 2800 upon x minus 100 minus 2800 upon x, which is equal to 1 upon 2. Okay, that again looks like a question which has like some few big numbers in it. Like the 2800 is kind of big number, but we don't need to be worried about it. What I can do is, to start with, I'll just take that 2800 common from both the things. Okay, so 2800, if I take it out, if I factor it out, it becomes 1 upon x minus 100 minus 1 upon x is equal to 1 upon 2. Let us simplify the bracket. So 2800 in the bracket, this x goes to the 1, so it becomes x minus, keep in mind, minus this x minus 100, the x minus 100 goes to this 1, but the fact is that it is not a 1, it is a negative 1. So the negative sign puts up an effect on both the things. Okay, so it is minus x plus 100. Okay, because it is not a positive one, it is a negative one, so the effect of the negative goes to both the terms there. Okay, in the denominator I'll be left with x minus 100 times x, which is just x square minus 100x, that is equal to 1 upon 2. From the numerator I can cancel out the x and the negative x, and here I am left with 2800 and then times the 100, so 2 extra zeros, and my denominator is x square minus 100x is equal to 1 upon 2. The 2 goes to the other side, so 2 times 28 is 56, and those many zeros, so I have 4 zeros, is equal to x square minus 100x. Now I'll shift the 560000 to the other side, so my equation would look like x square minus 100x minus 560000 is equal to 0. Okay, that is again a quadratic equation which I know a lot of you are gonna struggle with. So we all know that 7 8s are 56, and if I have not 7 and not 8, 700 and 800, it would be like 56 and followed by 2 zeros, I mean 4 zeros. Okay, and also 700 and 800, like when I subtract them I get a negative 100, so my numbers would be 700 and 800. Let's see how to solve this. So it becomes, okay, I'll just do it here. So x square minus 800x plus 700x minus 560000 is equal to 0. I take an x common, I'll be left with x minus 800, plus I take a 700 common, I'll be left with x minus 800, that is equal to 0. From here I'll just do the question up here. Yeah, from here both the terms have x minus 800 common in them, so I take x minus 800 out. So the first term gives me an x and the second terms give me a 700, that is equal to 0. And I can surely say that x minus 800 would be equal to 0, which means x would be equal to 800. That is one of my answers. Or I can say x plus 700 would be equal to 0, and hence x would be equal to negative 700. That is my second answer. That is how I solve this question. Although it's a big question, like the numbers are big, but yeah, we can still solve it very easily. Okay, with that much, let's move ahead to the next question. So the next question which I have over here is 3x square minus 2 root 6x plus 2 is equal to 0. This also like sweats a lot of people because there is a square root over here, and how do I do it? Let's see. Let's just figure out the product and the sum and the difference. So the product is first number times the last number, which is 3 times 2, which is 6. And the sum or the difference is supposed to be the middle number, which is negative 2 root 6. Now I just need to think of two numbers. When I multiply them, I get a root 6. When I add or subtract them, I get a negative 2 root 6. Okay. So I surely know that root 6 times root 6 is just a 6. So I say, okay, fair enough. I can do root 6 times root 6. That would give me a 6. And also root 6 plus root 6 adds up to 2 root 6. But the fact is I don't need a root 6. I don't need 2 root 6. I need negative 2 root 6. So I'll just take a negative sign on both the terms, like both the root 6. So the product still becomes a positive thing, but my answer, like the thing, is negative 2 root 6. Okay. So it is negative root 6 minus root 6. That is how I split it up. It looks very risky to do it, but it is not actually difficult. It is like very easy. Okay. Once you get the hold of it, it would be really easy. Okay. So this thing becomes 3x square minus root 6x minus root 6x plus 2 is equal to 0. This was not the difficult part of the question. This was very easy, trust me. The real challenging part which people like fear the most is this part which I'm going to do right now. That is how to take common stuff from the first and the second term and from the third and the fourth term. Okay, so let me make it very, very, very clear that 3 is actually root 3 times root 3 and 2 is actually root 2 times root 2. Okay, Now what I can do is from the first two terms, I can see that I have a 3 over there and I have an x over there, but that 3 can be written as root 3 times root 3. What about the 6, the root 6? The root 6 thing is also root 3 times root, wait, I'll just write this later on. Yeah. So root 6 is actually root 3 times root 2. Okay. So if I see in these two things, there is this root 3 which is common, which I can factor out. Okay. So I take a root 3 and an x common. Okay. So I'll be left with a root 3 and an x from the first term. From the second term, I'll just be left with a root 2. Okay. Now let us look at the second thing. Root 6 is still like root 3 into root 2. But that root 2, I mean the 2 can be written as root 2 times root 2. And from here, I can again see that there is a root 2 which is common over here. So from these two, I can take a square root of 2 common with obviously a negative sign. So I take a negative root 2 common. So I'll be left with root 3x minus root 2, which becomes 0. Okay. And if you're not very confident about your workings, just undo the steps and check. Like send this root 3x inside with the bracket, like with all the terms in the bracket, and check if you are actually going back to the previous step. If that happens, then you're right. If that does not happen, just go through your steps once again. Okay, from here I can take root 3x minus root 2 common. So root 3x minus root 2 is a common thing. And I'll again be left with root 3x minus root 2. Oh, that's a repeated root. Okay. So this is the same thing which is repeated. So I can just write it as root 3x minus root 2 all squared is equal to 0. I can just take a square root and I don't need to put up a plus or a minus 0 because 0 is neither positive nor negative. So it is root 3x minus root 2 is equal to 0. Hence root 3x is equal to root 2. And finally, x would be equal to square root of 2 upon square root of 3, which I can also write as x is equal to square root of 2 over 3. The laws of indices says that I can do this thing. Okay. I think these are all the basic questions that we all need to know about quadratic equations without using the formula or without stressing out a lot on it. There is one specific type of question which I would like to cover over here, which is what if the roots of the equation are given to us and we need to simplify, like we need to get the quadratic equations. So generally we were doing like the quadratic equations were given to us and we were solving it to get the square roots of, to get the roots of the equation or the values of x. But what if the values of x are given to us and we need to find the quadratic equation? Okay, I have such a question which says that these are the values of x, so 3 and 5. Okay, so this is the set of values basically. And I need to figure out the equation. So I'd say, okay, don't worry. Let's just say that, okay, x is 3, fair enough. X is 5, fair enough. Like x is 3 and x is 5, that is what is given. Shift the 3 and the 5 to the other side. So it becomes x minus 3 is equal to 0. And this one becomes x minus 5 is equal to 0. Multiply both the things. So it becomes x minus 3 times x minus 5 is equal to 0. Open up the bracket. X goes with both of them, so x square minus 5x. Now the negative 3 goes with both of them. So minus 3x, negative 3, negative 5 is a positive 15. That is equal to 0. So finally the equation is x square minus 8x plus 15. That is equal to 0. How easy. That's the quadratic equation. And if you look very closely, this is exactly the factorization method, the split the middle term method, but in the reverse order. Okay, you just solve the quadratic equation to get the answers of x. Here you are just doing the other way around. I'll take one more question of this type. So let's say the set of values that are given to me is negative 2 and 3. Okay, rules remain the same. X is negative 2, that's what I understand from here, and x is equal to 3. Fair enough. Send the negative 2 and 3 to the other side. So x plus 2 is equal to 0 and x minus 3 is equal to again 0. Okay, multiply them. So it becomes x plus 2 times x minus 3, that would be equal to 0. Open up the bracket. X goes with all of them. X square minus 3x. 2 goes with both of them. So it becomes 2x minus 6 is equal to 0. And this eventually becomes x square minus x minus 6 is equal to 0. And that is my quadratic equation. Okay, so that would be it for this video. In this video, we discuss all the quadratic equations that problems that could turn up in your exam. But these were all the problems without using the formula. The next part, the part 2 for this thing would be with the quadratic equation formula. We'll discuss the nature of roots, and we'll discuss a few questions and we'll solve a few questions which use the quadratic equation formula. Okay, thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much. Bye bye.